Hello, what is up everyone, Tony here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create an Amazon EC2 server and set up a Minecraft server, a vanilla Minecraft server running off of Amazon EC2. Should be pretty interesting, so let's get started. Alright, so to get started, you're going to want to go ahead and log into your AWS main panel. And over here under the compute section, we're going to click on EC2, which allows us to create virtual servers in the cloud. So here we have the EC2 home screen where we can create a regular instance by clicking launch instance that will create on demand, which is the most expensive type. We can create spot instances, which basically mean you're bidding on spare EC2 capacity, but your server might get shut down if your bid price passes or if the price of server passes your bid price. You also have reserved instances. This is where you can pay on like 50% or 100% of the cost of the server in advance with a 1 or 3 year contract and save some money. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to go ahead and create an on-demand instance by clicking launch, and the first step is it's going to ask us to choose an AMI or Amazon machine image, and this is essentially the operating system which we want to use. So we can go with Linux. This is the regular one. We can go with Windows Server 2012, which does cost extra because of the licensing fees. In our case, we're just going to go ahead and select Ubuntu Server 1604 LTS. Next up, it's going to ask us which tier of server we want. This is where you decide the tier of the server you pick determines how much storage, how much RAM, and how much CPU power you're going to have. Now, obviously, the more CPU and the more RAM, the more expensive. And they're classified as general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, or storage optimized. So, in another tab, you can open up the EC2 instance pricing page, and here you can see the different pricing for all the different server types. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to go with the T2.small server, which gives you 1 CPU core and 2 gigs of RAM. But please note that is quite limiting for a Minecraft server, especially if you're going to install Bucket or if you're going to run something such as FTP server, which is a lot more demanding. In a case like that, I'd suggest you step up to at least the M4 large series or maybe even more. Now, T2 small with 2 gigs of RAM should be enough for 4 or 6 players. But preferably after that, your server might start skipping ticks. So if you're going to be hosting a larger server, consider stepping up in terms of the class. So we're going to select T2.small. We're going to click configure instance details. And it's going to ask us the number of instances we want. In our case, we only want 1. The network, the subnet, which we're just going to leave in default in any availability zone. Shutdown behavior, I'm going to select to terminate, so when we do shut down the server, it terminates instantly, so we don't have to pay extra. And we're going to say shared run on a shared hardware instance. Dedicated means you basically have the entire server to yourself, but that's obviously a lot more expensive. And we don't need to do anything with advanced details. So we can click next, which is going to ask us to add storage. Now, over here, you can see that for internal storage, these T2 classes and the new M4 say EBS only. EBS stands for Elastic Block Storage, and it's basically Amazon's way for having the storage separate. So you can pay for separate storage 8 gigs or 16 gigs and make a snapshot of it, so that way you can use it on all your machine images, for example. So EBS does cost extra. Not expensive though, so for our case, we're just going to pick 8 gigs. But something more to pricing, if you're using Amazon's EC2 Free Tier, you're going to want to go ahead and stick to T2 Micro because that's the only class covered in the Free Tier. And you're going to want to make sure you don't pass 30 gigs of EBS storage. For our case, we're just going to stick to 8 gigs of general purpose SSD. We don't need a provisioned IOPS SSD, and there's not a big price difference between SSD and hard drive. Next, we can click Tag Instance. So here, you can create tags, but you don't really need to. Then in Configure Security Group, This is basically the firewall for the server. This is where we pick which ports are allowed to communicate to which IP addresses. So normally you could just go SSH and then say for your Minecraft server, well, not listed, but like all traffic, then you could say port range. Minecraft usually runs on 25565. If you have two in the same instance, then go 25566. But we can go for all TCP traffic, and we could set the port range if we wanted to by going with custom TCP rule and then selecting 25565. And then for the source, we're just going to leave it to anywhere, so anyone around the world can connect to our server. Now if you're only going to be accessing this from your own IP address, you can say custom and you can enter your IP address. There we go. So we have port 22, which is used for SSH when we connect to our server using Secure Shell. So if you're on Windows, you're going to use a tool like PuTTY. On Linux, it's supported natively. We're going to click review and launch. And right here, it's going to say improve your instance's security. Your security group launch for is open to the world. And we are aware of that. That is because so anyone can access it. We are purposely leaving it like that. But again, if you're making a server just for yourself, you might consider putting in your IP address there instead of leaving it open to anyone. So we can go ahead and click launch, and it's going to ask you to choose a key pair, and I'm going to use the one I already have called Tony AWS. If you have not already made a key pair, you can go ahead and click create a new key pair. What a key pair is essentially it's the encrypted password, so that way when you connect with SSH using a key pair, you don't have to enter your password separately, which is a huge bonus. So we're going to click we acknowledge that we have access to the selected private key pair. I'm not going to go into creating a new one. It's relatively simple. You give it a name and then it downloads to your computer as a PEM file. If you're on Windows, you might have to convert your PEM files to .ppk files. And I'll leave a link down in the description on how to convert PEM to PPK. Because PuTTY on Windows uses PPK files, whereas on Linux you can use PEM, PPK, it doesn't really matter. And because I'm on Ubuntu right now, I'm just going to stick with a PEM file. So if you're on Windows, check the link in the description below. And it's telling me that they're not going to be transitioning away from it, so we can see that our instance is running. So next up, we're going to want to connect to the server. There are multiple ways to do this. We're going to connect using SSH. Now, if you're on Windows, you're going to use a program called PuTTY or Kitty or an SSH client of your choice. For Windows, I would recommend PuTTY, as I've used it and I know it works. And then if you're on Linux, you can just open a terminal and then just type SSH. So you need to look over here to your public DNS or your public IP. The public DNS usually works better compared to the IP address. So you want to just copy your public DNS. Oh, do I have multiple terminals? Oh, there we go. That was weird. Okay, so SSH. You might want to do this as sudo, so that way we can use root access. We're going to say SSH, which is the command for secure shell, -i because we're using key pair. And then in brackets you can type, or in quotation marks, you type the name of your file. So in our case, tonyaws.pem. Make sure you add the .pem file, something I forgot the first time. And then you're just going to paste your the public DNS. Oh, before you do that, make sure you connect as user Ubuntu. So we're going to say Ubuntu at EC2. And the reason being, if you just connect, it's going to try to connect as root user, and Amazon doesn't really like that, so it's going to deny your access. You need to connect as Ubuntu, I believe if you're using the Linux AMI instead of the Ubuntu AMI, you're going to connect using EC2-user. So over here, just press yes, and it's adding the list to. And here we go. So we have successfully SSH'd into the server on Amazon. Cool. So now that we have SSH working, basically any command we type is going to be on the Amazon server. So first we can just sudo apt-get update to make sure everything's updated. Note that that does not update the actual programs on the server, it just updates the repository URLs. Next up, you're going to want to head on over, search up Minecraft server and get the official Minecraft server over here. And you're going to want to download, well, not download, you're going to want to head on over to the download URL, right click it, and copy the link location, and then in your SSH you're going to use wget, or if you prefer you can use curl2, that works. Wget, and we're going to type in the address of the server download that we just copied, and it has successfully saved. So if we go ls right now, it shows that in our root directory we have Minecraft server 1.10.2.jar. Cool. So to make sure we can check that Java is working by typing java-version, because Java should come installed. Nope. Program Java cannot be found. Well, Java should come installed, and if it doesn't, we can simply install it. Over here it already gives us the command for it. We can just say sudo apt-get install openjdk -7-jre -headless, and press yes, and this will install the OpenJDK Java environment for your Ubuntu server, which is necessary to run the Minecraft server. And it is installing, and there we go. And we still have Minecraft server. Now, note that this installed it to the user's root directory on the Amazon server, so if you're going to be running multiple things, you might want to move it into a folder, but for our case that should work just fine. So now we can just type Java to run the Java application -jar, and in our case we're going to say Minecraft and the name of the file, so Minecraft_server.1.10.2.jar, and this should start up the server. Perfect. Okay, so it's supposed to happen. It ran the first time and it created the eula.txt file, so the end user license agreement, which you have to agree to before running the server. So if you go ls, we can see that there's a file called eula.txt. Now, so we have to edit the eula.txt file. There are multiple ways to do this. You can use Vim as a text editor, or my preference, you can just use a simple nano. So you can just type nano eula.txt. Oh, no, I wrote it wrong, sorry, .txt. And there you go. By changing the setting below to true, you're indicating your agreement to our license agreement. So just go ahead and delete the false and change it to true. Make sure you actually read the license agreement beforehand. It's on the Minecraft website. What am I saying? Just skim over it. And then we can run the Java command once again. And this time it should start up our server. There we go. It's creating the world, preparing spawn area. Now, of course, because we're using a simple server with only 2 gigs of RAM and 1 CPU core, this takes a while. But once the world has generated, it should become a lot simpler and quicker. So the server is running, so technically you can connect right now. And of course, because of the system, we're starting to get the lagging behind errors already. So if you're going to do this for a lot of players, make sure you use one of the higher tiers. This is just the minimum required to run the server. So we can go ahead and stop the server, and we can go nano server.properties to change the properties. So here we go. During settings, we can allow nether for all players. We don't have to force a game mode. That's if you want all your players to be in survival. Game mode 0 is survival, 1 is creative, 2 is adventure. We're going to set the difficulty to 1, which is easy, 0 is peaceful, 1 is easy, 2 is normal, 3 is hard. And this player idle timeout, you might want to set, I believe it's in seconds, and that is for AFK. If a player is AFKing too long on the server, it'll kick them out to save on bandwidth and CPU usage. Next we have spawn monsters that we can all leave. You might want to disable PvP if you're creating a peaceful server. You can enable hardcore if you want it. Here you can choose to enable command blocks. Now note that command blocks do create lag. And here we have the server port. So as you remember, in our firewall we enabled port 25565, and because that's the default port this runs at. If you wanted to run it, I don't know, on port 80 because you want to interfere with HTTP, you can go ahead. You can change the port on the firewall and the port here, and that'll work. Now scrolling down, the last thing you can do is you can change the message of the day instead of a Minecraft server to something more suiting, like Tony's AWS EC2 server. You know, just more exciting. And you can use Control X to exit Nano, and then you press yes to override the current file, and it asks you for a name, and you press enter. Sorry, that's you if you want to save changes. Next, we can rerun the server, and this time it will start up a lot quicker because the world has already been generated. Now, if you already have a world or you want to play one of the popular Minecraft maps out there, oh, it's done. You can, of course, download them. You can download my other popular Minecraft maps with wget, and you can copy them. The command for copy on Linux is cp. You can go cp and then that folder, and copy into the folder called world. So I'll just show you if we ls here. You can see that we have a folder that should be called world right over here, and you can copy paste all the items inside the map you downloaded to this world file right here. Alright, now we can check to see if our server is working. That's odd. Oh, okay, it's only been 8 minutes. Cool. Alright, so now let's hop on over on the computer. Minecraft working. Alrighty, so Minecraft has just launched 1.10.2 perfecto. So right now we can go into multiplayer. We can add a server. Just copy the public IP address, or you can use the public DNS once again. The DNS usually does tend to work better. Oops, let me mute the desktop audio. And oh, there we go. I didn't even have to type the port number. Perfect. So play a multiplayer Minecraft server, Tony's Amazon EC2 server, and we can just click join server. Invalid session. Okay, well, that's a bummer. There's one more thing I want to show you guys over here in the configuration file. Over here, there's a max players, so you can change the max players to something like 4 players or 6 players, or depending on how many friends you want playing on your server at the same time. So you can restart your server after changing the player number. So perfect, I'm just gonna mute this. And we can click on multiplayer and see, as we can see, there's now 4 players. We can join server. Perfect. Alright, so now we're officially we're playing around on the server that we created. So here we can go ahead and type something like, say, hello player, and that'll relay over to here. Or the chat can be like, hi server, and the server will reply back. So we officially have our server working, and we successfully connected a client to it. You can do this for all of your friends, so that way you guys can all play it together. And when you're done, you can just press disconnect, close your Minecraft, and just type the command stop. Oh, you can also check out the commands you can run on your Minecraft server by typing help, help2, help3 for all the different pages. And when you're done with your server, you can just press stop. And the server successfully stops. If you want to keep a copy of the world, you might want to copy it over to another folder, or if you're keeping the EBS storage, you can also create a snapshot of the server. So you can go over to here to image, and you can create an image which will basically make a snapshot of your current server, of the EBS storage on the server. Now, keeping the snapshots might cost you extra, but that way you won't have to set up a new server every time. Once you're done, it'll always be good. You can always just create an apps.ec2 instance from that snapshot and play on that again. And to just disconnect from SSH, you can just go Control-C. Nope, sorry. You can just type exit, and that will disconnect you from the SSH server. And when you're done with your instance, you can right-click, go over to Instance State, and click on Terminate. And it's telling us that on an EBS-backed image, the root EBS volume will be deleted, and only storage will be lost, and we can just click Terminate. If you need to keep your world, you can copy it. Now, you can also see that we created the server 15 minutes ago, and it's now 6:01, but it charges you by the hour, so technically we got charged for 1 hour right now, or at least my student credits. So there you go, that has been my tutorial on how to create an Amazon EC2 instance and install Minecraft server on it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it'll come in useful sometime. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.